I had always decided that whatever I do, I will do it at the highest level. I'm not going to do it halfway or incomplete.
How did the sports and how did javelin and shot put come your way?
One of my coaches said that I was better. My body was more suited for athletics.
You think India has an infrastructure for Paralympians or para-athletes?
There are identified spaces, special para training centers.
What are the learnings you had when you wrote your book?
The journey of writing the book was revisiting my past.
Can you help us understand what does your foundation do and how can others benefit through your foundation?
So he says it's very important for us to teach persons with disabilities to have identified their sources of happiness.
Today's Sapna Rise episode is not just a conversation. It's a masterclass in courage, resilience, and the sheer will to live life on your own terms. My guest is someone whose story shakes you, lifts you, and stays with you long after the last word. She is a Padma Shri awardee, Arjuna awardee, Khel Ratna recipient, and the first Indian woman to win a Paralympic medal. But beyond the medals, beyond the honors, lies a journey that redefines the human spirit. At the age of 30, Deepa Malik was diagnosed with spinal tumor, 17 surgeries, 183 stitches, and paralysis from the chest down. For most, that might have meant the end of a chapter. But for Deepa, it was the beginning of a revolution. In her memoir, Bring It On, she writes with fierce honesty and raw strength about learning to live again, love again, and the fight not just for herself, but for others like her. She became a rally driver, a swimmer, a biker, an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, and a fierce advocate for inclusion. She took her wheelchair across the highest motorable roads in the Himalayas, became a Paralympic silver medalist at the age of 45, and went on to serve as the president of the Paralympic Committee of India. As she says in her book, I didn't choose the wheelchair chose me, but I chose what I would do with it. And perhaps her life was summed up best by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, who once said, I haven't seen a better motivator than Deepa Malik. Today, friends, we go beyond the headlines to meet the woman who didn't just break barriers. She absolutely bulldozed through them. Deepa Malik, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to sit across from a living symbol of strength and resilience. For those of you who may not know your full story, before we get to that, a little bit on the title of your story, Bring It On. It definitely is very different, very motivational by itself. Why did you choose the title Bring It On?
Bring it on because my life has been time and again introduced to different types of challenges, adversities. They just don't end. And I think that's what I say to life. I say to all the challenges that come my way. From getting paralyzed as a child to learning to walk again, going on to nurture a child, my firstborn. And even before my marriage, I was a very unconventional person. Somebody in early 80s trying to do biking. It wasn't heard of in our era. Girls were not so much seen on a bike, and if anybody did that, it was more like a rebel. I loved outdoors. I loved adventure. I could never ride a bike straight. I had to do some kind of a stunt wheelie on it. So I was always somebody who would challenge herself, and even if the challenges were not there, invent some. So it always was a situation of bring it on, and Later, of course, seeing a childhood paralysis, recovery, long illness, then to see my child get hit in a road accident and go through her disability, almost a similar kind, where she got paralyzed on the left side of her body. So one had to go through that journey. And just when things were looking up and Devika was recovering, my tumors came back. And I had to then surrender to a choice where I had to choose a wheelchair, or like I say, the wheelchair chose me. And I had to relearn everything, right from what to eat, what to wear, how to sit, how to take a turn in the bed. I still don't have any balance below the chest level. So to train the body, how to shift from the bed to the wheelchair, the rehabilitation on the chair. And after that, when I decided that life, I will celebrate. I will enjoy living. I will enjoy looking at my children grow up. I'm going to be in a gratitude mode that yes, I have still got some more years to live despite serious surgeries and tumors. But I realized that the disability was not in me, it was more in the mindsets of the society. And that became the biggest bring it on moment, because then I decided that I have to shatter the stereotypical image of a woman sitting on a wheelchair with no bladder and bowel. And even when it came to beauty, the same year I had won a beauty contest. I had become a Navy queen, and everybody was, oh my God, she's mother of two. And she's so fit, and she could still walk the ramp, and she could still win a. And suddenly the same woman, if sitting on a wheelchair, is no longer beautiful. Oh my God, what has happened? She's a burden, she's a liability. How is she going to be a mother? How is she going to be a wife? So too many questions to which I had to say, bring it on. And then the path that I chose, you introduced me as a first biker, first rallist. First is fine. It is glamorous. You feel like an achiever. But first you have to pave your own path. True. Because there's no guiding light.
True.
You're moving in the dark, fear of the unknown. But then you have to learn to say, bring it on.
I think very well said. I like the audience to understand a bit of your background, because bring it on as a emotion, right?
Yes.
I think is backed by the kind of childhood you've had, the kind of support that maybe your military background
Absolutely.
gave you, the father who was with you, standing beside you
Yes.
in all the turmoil that you had in your earlier years. So how did the entire family support you before you got onto the path of, hey, let me bring it on and do something different?
I was brought up by a dad who was a solution finder.
Right.
See, in army you have to move your houses every now and then. In army, your father has to leave for training areas or war-like situations. You have to, there is no fixed routine. You can be called for any duty at any time. So there's always an element of challenge. And whenever we moved houses, my father was always there choosing the biggest, most dilapidated bungalow and then repairing it and then, doing it up and then making it look so beautiful that people would say, oh my God, I wish we had taken this house. So my father was always the kind. He would never give up on any situation, be it small, be it big. He always had a solution for something. So, and I think that is
something you inherited, I think.
Something I subconsciously inherited.
Okay.
I saw him even during my illness, how he balanced his work life, his office duties, his morning bed. And same goes for my mother.
Right.
Even my mother, she would adapt so quickly. She learned cycling.
Yeah.
because Papa had to go to office and she had to come to the hospital twice a day.
And I think you mentioned in the book the way she would strap you on the
Yes,
cycle.
because I didn't have balance.
Balance. Yeah. I mean, that's really
yes.
courageous, I would say.
So there was never a moment where I said, "Oh, what are we going to do? Oh, how is this possible?" It was always, "Bring it on, let's do it."
So I think the family background
Yes.
is something that you inherited in a way that it gave you that attitude.
Yes,
that
I think I
spirit.
was a very lucky girl child
Right.
who was never neglected for her gender or for her disability.
Right.
Whatever was the financial constraints, whatever was the limitations of my father's job, yet they did the best for me.
And it reflects on the way you're living your life today. So kudos to the entire
And
family.
I think that was my nursery of learning.
Right.
Maybe Almighty gave me a set of parents
Right.
who taught me the right way of parenting.
Right.
Because even I had to bring up a child in disability. So one thing I have learned, the basic rule of parenting is to lead with an example.
Wow.
Your children will never be what you want them to be.
Okay.
I have learned from my life that your children will only be what you yourself are.
Yeah.
So I think motherhood was also a huge.
It's a
bring it
powerful
on.
journey, of course.
It was a huge bring it on moment for me because I said, oh, if my life is going to be on a wheelchair and in this body,
Right.
which is so difficult, but I'm not give my children, the legacy of sadness or inferiority complex or to feel different. And especially when I had to bring up Devika,
Right.
because she also had to overcome her challenges of her disability. She's also done a wonderful job.
I think life comes back to full circle, which we'll
Yes.
come to a little bit more in terms of how she too
Yes.
participated and also is a medalist. But before we get there, ma'am, one thing important for all of us to know is the mindset. I would like to draw everyone's attention to the mindset that you carried. So when you got diagnosed at the age of 5, right? I'm sure at that age, you wouldn't really know what's happening around. But the mindset in terms of there's something different about, you speak about the body being a little bit lethargic, you speak about it being a little bit weak, you were always a bubbly kind of girl doing a lot of things outdoor, but then suddenly the body took a turmoil.
Yes.
So what was the mindset and how did you develop the mindset at the age of 5, which really has taken you to what you are today?
At the age of 5, I did realize that there is something wrong with me and I am not able to walk. And obviously the visits to the hospital and a long stay at the hospital. But one thing I learned very early was attitude of gratitude.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I knew my parents were working beyond their capacity and beyond their resources to keep me alive. Even as a young child, I could understand why my mother cried, because people visited, left a word, girl child, disabled, why are you keeping her alive? Why are you pumping life into her when she can't even move her limbs? She's going to grow up into a vegetable baby. And yet I never saw my parents discarding me in any way or getting influenced by any such. I always felt that, oh my God, if I was not with this set of parents, or I probably would have been, just nobody would have even got me treated. They would have just let me die. But my parents never gave up on me. And you said about the mindset. So I think gratitude is something when you are able to appreciate something, and appreciation can only happen when you're looking at the good side of things. The more I practiced gratitude, the more I could identify the good side of things. That made me a positive thinking person. So unknowingly practicing gratitude, there was so much of positivity in me. Instead of looking at my glass as half empty, I always saw it half full. And then my parents made it such a happy state of mind, because to me, that illness of my childhood was actually family bonding, family time, lot of board games, lot of storybooks and storytelling. a lot of care. There was a huge lesson on time management
Wow.
because they were forever planning the next day. Papa had to change uniforms so many times in a day, being an army officer. Mummy had to plan when to cook, when was the exam of my brother, when I had to submit my homework because they would make home tutor me in the hospital. So everything was round the clock. And that habit has helped me manage my bladder and bowel because I am time bound. My one diaper is only going to last for certain hours. So I have to work on my. People say, how do you do it? Aren't you worried? I'm not worried because subconsciously there's a value of time and time management clicking at the back of my mind. I plan things very fast because that's what I have subconsciously learned. And that's the mindset which has developed. I don't get scared of change.
Ask you again on the mindset part, because this mindset of gratitude you developed when you were at your weak point, I would say.
Yes.
But when you were at your higher point, or the highest point, when you won the Olympics or the silver medal, what was your mindset? Was it again gratitude towards things around you, or was it that this is now a movement I would want to put forward to the world so I can inspire a lot of other Paralympians? So can you help us understand the aftermath of the medal that you won?
See, gratitude cannot go away because we have to realize that any medal that I win or I won ever was never a single effort.
Right.
I cannot say I made the medal.
Okay.
There's so many things come together. A good coach, a good conditioning coach, injury management physiotherapist, a nursemaid who did my catheterization and change of diapers, a wheelchair attendant who carried me up and down my competition chair and helped me throw, a Paralympic committee who created that platform for persons with disability, the schemes of the government and the sports ministry, the family, the children. There's so many people who come together and then a medal is made. So whenever you win or achieve or you reach a point of success, it is a moment of gratitude.
Wow.
Now, another good thing I learned was channelizing my anger, my
Okay, that's
frustration.
interesting. Okay.
Because everything that happened in my life was very unconventional. You rarely see a paralyzed mother bringing up a paralyzed daughter. That was different. I joined the world of sports at 36 as a swimmer, and the serious turn of things happened when I was 40. I was preparing and playing for Paralympics at 45. I continued to play till I was 49 years of age. So there was a lot of doubt which was coming my way. A lot of people, the naysayers, the people who never believed that a woman this age can also achieve at that level. So all that negative comments would leave me very frustrated and angry. But I could channelize that, and I really thank my mental coaches. I had Preeti, I had Saran, who were closely working for my mental well-being and my mind strength. And that helped me. And that's what I tell the youth, that was I tell children. We are humans, we are made of different emotions. नवरस होते हैं,
Right.
उसमें क्रोध भी है, क्रंदन भी है, उसमें रूठना भी है, उसमें you feel low also sometimes. But the whole beauty is how can you, by the power of your mind and the use of your education and your correct way of choosing and making your choices of which emotion to highlight and which emotion to control, and how to channelize a negative emotion into a positive energy.
Wow.
So I think that also worked for me. And had I not got paralyzed, had I not gone through adversities at different stages of my life, I wouldn't have been able to practice this channelizing. So every adversity crafted me into a better person.
You also speak a lot on manifestation, which is again trying to understand your mindset. Reason why I'm going back to your mindset is because I don't think many of us in the country or globally realize that the power of being or having a positive mindset like yours, which can take you leaps and bounds ahead. So you also mentioned a bit about manifestation. So can you help us understand how did manifestation play on your mindset so deeply?
Manifestation is something that you repeat continuously in your conscious mind. You choose something and you continuously repeat it. So what is that? That is right practice.
Okay.
That is repetition of a thought.
So disciplining your mind.
Disciplining your mind and reaffirmation.
Wow.
I think manifestation is usually considered as a prayer.
Okay.
That, oh Lord, give me this.
True, yeah.
You know, to me, manifestation was not a prayer.
Okay.
To me, manifestation was a tool of disciplining the mind, getting the focus in the right place, and giving no other option but to just that single-minded focus.
Wow.
I had always decided that whatever I do, I will do it at the highest level. I'm not going to do it halfway or incomplete. So if I swam, I made a world record.
Of course.
If I did biking, I made a world record. If I drove on the highest motorable roads, made a world record. If I played to win one of the highest sporting events medal. So, manifestation to me is to strive for excellence and perfection. And excellence and perfections are not an act, they are a habit.
Right.
Manifestation is habit forming.
I mean, I wish I could just stand right now and applaud. But the kind of things that you have done in your journey, not just sticking by one sport, not just sport in fact, but doing a lot of adventure.
Yes.
I would like all of us to also know from you, how did you get to the idea or the concept of, sports with shot put or javelin? Mm-hmm. Of course, we've read about your adventures on the biking side of things, where you're always interested in riding a cycle, and then
yes.
your love for wheels, which I think you manifested also.
Yes.
But how did the sports and how did javelin and shot put come your way?
When you say manifestation, sure. I think manifestation also helped me be so focused to find solutions to every obstacle that came, because the end journey was decided.
Right.
I will ride a bike.
Okay.
I will drive.
Okay.
I will play sports.
Okay.
So the end goal was manifested.
Right.
But then how to reach there? Because there were lack of policies, so you demanded policies. There were lack of permissions and awareness, you demanded that. So in the process, I think manifestation is also a process.
Right.
And when you ask about sports, beggars couldn't be choosers. If I had manifested to play at the highest level, swimming was not taking me anywhere. Okay. I have a body which does not have automatic temperature body control, which a normal human body has.
Okay.
Because of the spinal cord injury, that ability is gone.
Okay.
So the doctors said that if you are practicing in cold weather, in cold water, you may end up having cardiac arrest, or it would increase spasticity. You get spasm, and as a spasm comes on your lungs and your heart, it can be a dangerous situation. I was also getting skin diseases. Okay. To be in the water, I was not drinking enough water, because otherwise my bladder will leak.
Okay.
And without drinking enough water, I was ending up with injuries in my muscles. So swimming, despite all my manifestations, all my energy, all my discipline, my focus, my hard work, I would not have achieved the highest level. So, reality check, which again is important. Are you really made for that thing? Everything was there, and yet success was not happening. So I shifted gears to athletics. One of my coaches said that I was better. My body was more suited for athletics. And that's when, in my disability category, I had chosen javelin.
Right.
It is a lighter event, and I could do that. But as I went along, we realized that there was no guarantee that in your particular disability category, mine was F53.
Okay. What exactly does
So
that
this
mean?
is as per the functionality of your
Functionality,
body,
okay.
muscles and your strength in your body, your
Right.
body balance and
Okay.
the type of disability you have.
Okay.
So that when you are competing, you are at the equal playing
Equal
field.
playing field, right?
So you're put in a certain category. Now in that category, I would realize that sometimes javelin would come, sometimes discus would come, sometimes shot put would be there. So for example, 2010 when I introduced myself into sports, I had shot put in Commonwealth Games. That training, of course, I was too naive. I didn't know what competition was. I was just beginning to learn to be an athlete. So I came sixth, though it was a diploma position. Immediately a month later, there was javelin in Asian Games. I made a medal in javelin. I came home. A month later was World Championship. There was shot put in my category. I made a medal in shot put. I came back. Then for the forthcoming all major competitions like Asian Para Games and all, I did javelin. I found javelin more my strength. But when it happened that 4 years later when I was in the Paralympics, there was no javelin. I had to learn a shot put for the Rio Paralympics. In Jakarta, Indonesia in 2018 when I was preparing for my third Asian Para Games, there was no shot put. I had to prepare for javelin and discus was also introduced.
Okay.
So I practiced discus to make a medal. So if you had to win and continue to be in the game, because you can only be a winner when you are actually playing. You can't be a winner sitting in the spectator stand. So to consistently win, one had to consistently train in different sports.
So you think that being a Paralympian or a para-athlete, when you look at a normal athlete with all abilities, para-athlete has to work, of course, more on the body, more on the mindset, but because of the different sporting options, he or she has to keep on changing in order to see what suits best.
Yes.
Do you think that is a disadvantage or an advantage when you compare to an athlete who knows from day one, I will only be doing the javelin for years together?
So I never use a negative connotation ever.
Right.
I never say it's a disadvantage.
Right.
I say it's an advantage because it puts us to more challenge. We become more resilient. We
Wow.
become tough in our mindset. We work harder. We have much more to prove.
Right.
So the motivation is more. So I will take it that way. And with all due respect to my able-bodied and my regular Olympians or the persons without disabilities who are athletes and playing, I work twice harder than them because they could get up at 6 a.m. and by 6:15 they could be in the
Right.
field. For me to be in the field at 6 a.m., I had to wake up at 3:30 because I had to first drink water, do my drills, do the
Wow.
catheterization. There is an anema process of passing stool, pass stool, because if I'm applying, there were so many times when I'm in the gym or when I'm doing my bench press or I'm doing my weightlifting trainings or my medicine ball throw, which is a 8 kg ball and you're applying pressure and you're throwing that the stool leaked out of my body. And there used to be no wheelchair accessible bathrooms, or even if there is a wheelchair accessible bathroom, I still need to lie down and then change a diaper. And if the diaper is full of stool, then you need two more people to assist. Somebody has to hold your leg, somebody has to move the diaper, somebody has to wipe you, clean you. I can't carry 3 attendants to go and play.
So
I have sat on wad of newspapers in my car and come home, all filled with stool in my diaper. So I'm proud of my journey. I'm proud of my resilience. It takes a lot of emotional strength to be able to talk about it, to be able to write about it, and to also be able to live that experience. How many people can live with that that dar, that fear that if I'm throwing, the stool can come, and yet go back to the coaching arena the next day and face all those people in front of whom you have come back smelling.
I mean, wow, as and how you describe yourself,
Yes.
and in terms of what you had to go
So
through.
it's all advantage. I'm much stronger. I'm a better version of myself.
I think Narendra Modi is not wrong when he says that he's not seen a better motivator than you, because
That's very kind of him. He's an amazing prime minister who has personally taken it on his agenda to talk about accessible India campaigns, to talk about toilets for women like me, toilets with disability friendly toilets. He's somebody who's talking about para sports in the Independent Day speech.
wow.
He's worked on inclusive policies.
You think India has an infrastructure for Paralympians or para athletes?
We are getting there.
How far are we from what it is in the West or what it is in the global scenario?
So we have identified certain areas. I will not say every district or every state or every two-tier city, but definitely there are identified spaces,
Okay.
special para training centers that have been now made, and strictly everybody is being instructed to create accessibility in every playing arena. And when we are hosting international events and media is writing about them, with every medal the awareness increases.
So, as the president of the Paralympic Association of
Yes.
India, when you were heading
Yes.
it, what are the changes you, as an athlete, plus for the fellow younger athletes,
Yes.
you would have done to improve the conditions, the infrastructure, the possibilities of Paralympians
I would again
really winning?
I would not take the credit alone because
Okay.
it is always a team effort. But yes, jo tan lage wo man jane. You know where the shoe pinches. The
Yes.
wearer knows where the shoe pinches.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I did understand that what were the basic needs, because I was a athlete in the most severe disability playing, and having played with my athletes for fellow athletes for almost 12, 14 years. No, in fact, 17 years before I actually became. So, first thing that I changed was communication. I made it
Okay.
easy for the athletes to
So
communicate.
the inclusion part that you speak of,
Yes.
so was it an effort that you had to really bring about to ensure that inclusiveness is now there in the way
I
Paralympians are
always
looked at?
demanded it. Yes, we ensured that we definitely had if the bathrooms were there and the right prosthetics were given, because I understood what are prosthetics, what is the requirement of prosthetics, and I could very easily convince the authorities that why this prosthetic is needed, because I had the knowledge of it.
Wow.
And we also made an effort to teach every athlete information technology.
Okay.
Most of my athletes came from rural backgrounds. We encouraged them to use smartphones. We encouraged them to use computer technology so that they could be connected on the Zoom. For example, when I took over, COVID set in.
Right.
And I had a Tokyo Paralympics coming. I mean, it was a huge challenge. So we taught all the athletes to come on Zoom. We created webinars. We had interactive sessions. We converted all the study material which is available online in English into regional languages. We even worked on Braille for persons with
when-
visual impairment.
When we're hearing all of this, the kind of effort that goes into preparation,
Yes.
one is as an athlete yourself,
Yes.
and then when you are on the other side of the table, when you're enabling other athletes, I think the preparation is much more larger.
So see, I always say that when I went to Rio, I won 1 medal. But when I led the team to Tokyo, I won 19 medals.
Fantastic.
And when I led the team to 2024 Paris, I made 29 medals.
Wow.
And I could make 14 more female medals post my medal. So I'm very happy. I mean, it's again very, it's very ostentatious to use word I. It is never I, it is always a team. But we could make the right team to make the right things happen.
Very, very beautiful the way you talk about, inclusiveness, not only from an athletic point of view, but also involving people, ensuring that the legacy is continued.
Yes. I
That's
think
very
good
important.
leaders make new leaders.
Right.
It is always about passing on the
Passing
baton.
on the
Otherwise, the
baton, yeah.
legacy dies.
A little bit on the Rio Olympics. I think that should be your biggest medal that or achievement, if I can put it that way, from a medal point of view or from an athletics point of view. Would that be your biggest?
Definitely in the hierarchy, yes. But the first medal is always the
Always
most precious one.
And which one would that be?
That was a bronze at the Asian Para Games in 2010,
Okay.
and it was in my javelin sport.
Okay.
But talking about the Rio Paralympics, it was a tough journey again.
Who are you competing with, and how was the journey?
So like I said, my competition was not within India. I had to really
Right.
think of my international competition out there. And, you had Asian countries, you had European countries, you had American countries, you have Australia playing, you have, the Russian, the other countries. Of course, Russia got disbanded because of their anti-doping policies.
Okay.
But and countries who are so-called developed, who have already had all the arrangements and all the infrastructure and all the coaching in place for persons with disability and their sports. For me, it was an unconventional age. B, suddenly after 2014, second consecutive Asian medal with a new record in javelin, my event changed. So I had to unlearn javelin, relearn
Relearn
shot
something
put.
new.
And the worst was, and the most hurting was a court case. Because the day that other opponent girl of mine was getting classified, I was sitting there and translating it in English for her.
Okay. So can you just walk us through what happened exactly? It's not
So-
explicitly written here, but if you could let us know.
So
what was the
basically
court
what
case?
happens that whenever you are preparing,
Okay.
a country is preparing,
Okay.
in para sports, in Paralympic, we have allocation of slots. There is a formula. If 3 people qualify the A level mark, you earn 1 quota for the country.
Okay.
Or if you are in top 5 or top 4, what is the position on that particular year in World Championship, then you get a slot for your country.
Okay.
Now, in my case, I had barely inched into the A qualification mark.
Okay.
3.60 was A qualifying. I threw 3.67 and I came 9th in the World Championship.
Right.
Whereas my other athlete, she had come 5th in the World Championship.
Okay.
And we were just 2. So we did not qualify into the formula of 3:1.
Okay.
Because 3 A level qualifications are required to get 1 woman quota.
Okay.
So the 1 woman quota came because of the World Championship slot,
Okay.
which the other girl had won. So the slot is never given to an individual athlete.
Okay.
And there was a gap of almost 8 months between the World Championship and the Paralympics.
8 months. Okay.
8 to 11, 10 months.
Okay.
So in that period, the quota which came to India for a single woman para athlete was thanks to 5th position in World Championship. But after preparing for the main trials, internal trials, to acquire that quota, the particular day that competition happened, she still remained in world ranking 5, whereas I threw my shot put at world ranking 1.
Wow. Okay.
So I was closer to the
Closer,
medal.
yes.
Since I was closer to the medal, that quota was given to me.
Okay.
But she took me to the High Court saying quota was hers.
Right.
So it started with she has cheated
Right.
because she cannot throw so much. There cannot be this drastic improvement. And she got data, they really done a good homework. They got data from all over saying that this person appeared this, so they could only increase 15 centimeters, somebody could only increase 20 centimeters.
But they didn't know your mindset.
Increasing 70, 80 centimeters was...
that was the...
And that too shot put. Shot put is a difficult equipment. So they said, her throws were foul and she was given... So for 3-4 sittings that happened. Then she said this happened. Then she said this happened. Finally they said that the quota was given to her. Then we had to prove that the quota is never to an individual. it is who is closest to the medal, and the NPC India decides. So this whole court case journey was very painful
tiring, yeah.
because people really don't know the inside story. All they know is, oh, she's already an Arjuna awardee. She's the funniest comment I have ever heard. वो तो English बोलती है. I said, English you don't get a slot. But again, bring it on.
Bring it on.
I just, like I say, I channelize my negative energy, and thanks to my mental coaches, when I went there on the competition chair, I was under so much of pressure. Not about the competition, it was more about my integrity, my honesty, my loyalty to my hard work. Can Deepa throw a 4.48 meter throw? So my second throw was 4.49. I had proved myself, and then I went all out and I threw a 4.61.
Which gave you the medal.
Yeah, which gave me the medal. So,
Very, very
so
inspiring.
to further increase it by 13 centimeters.
So after that, what happened? After you won the silver medal, you thought of
After that, it
competing in more tournaments.
Yes, I continued to play for 2 more years, but I mean, my father faced illness. He had blood cancer, and that was a difficult 1 year. You know, when you have achieved everything, I had so much of financial insecurity. I had so much of, but with the medal came a lot of financial awards, Padma Shri, and you were applauded everywhere. But here you were parallelly struggling, seeing your father go away. We knew that he's not going to make it. So it was again, I said, when are the challenges going to end?
But then life knows that you're bringing on attitude.
But what happened? Everybody got a Khel Ratna.
Right.
PV Sindhu got a Khel Ratna with the Rio medal. Sakshi Malik got a Khel Ratna. Deepa Karmakar got a Khel Ratna for her brilliant performance in gymnastics at Rio. Somehow, everybody forgot about me for Khel Ratna. So, I was the first Indian woman to win. And that was my father's last wish. So, I think again, he kept me motivated. Even in his worst time of life, where he was slowly going towards death, he still kept the fire burning in me and said, Beta, Khel Ratna to lena hai. Khel Ratna zarur lena hai. So, I again prepared. I won my 3rd consecutive medal at Wind Javelin with a new Asian record. And then they had to give me a Khel Ratna.
Which is the highest in the
Which is
sporting.
the highest. So when 2012, when I won Arjuna Award and I was 42 years old, everybody said, go home. President picture.
Retire at your peak.
Retire. But I always say, never allow others to paint their colors in your dreams.
Wow. Very well said. Very well said.
And that's what is manifestation. Make your own dreams, paint your own colors in them with your self-confidence. Shut the noises, which are negative ones, but always be open to learning.
Wow.
I've learned, continue to learn, and I'm always hungry to learn.
Speaking of learning, we've seen your journey, your story as an athlete. A little bit on the book. What are the learnings you had when you wrote your book? This is your first book that you have written, and I'm sure that a lot of books you'll be writing.
I'm glad you asked me this. Not very many people have asked me this, honestly. The journey of writing the book was revisiting my past and I think tweaking or redeciding my reactions to certain situations.
Okay.
Though I have penned them down honestly,
Right.
but I forgave a lot.
Okay.
I was carrying a lot of anger towards a lot of situations,
Okay.
somewhere suppressed.
Okay.
But writing a book and having gone through my own journey of learning, now when I was writing about a Deepa 25 years ago,
Right.
this Deepa 25 years later understood that everybody goes through their respective journeys. Right. Everybody must be in their own circumstances, in their own life learnings.
Right.
Maybe they were not as blessed, as evolved, as learned. Uh, Instead of being angry, I actually felt sorry that they were not even aware, they were ignorant towards how to treat a person with disability or how to accept disability. So it was a journey of forgiving people while I wrote.
While you wrote the book, it made you feel more light, made you feel
Yes.
having a
There
different
was
purpose.
so many part of my life which I wasn't ready to go to.
Okay.
I made sure that, whatever were the demons around it were destroyed.
Because
And I owe a lot to Soni.
okay.
Yes, Soni Sangwan, who's my co-author.
Right.
It was really a pleasant experience sitting with her and altering things, writing it, choosing the right way to write it. Because my story is so.
No, which
it
is
has
why,
so many
as a memoir,
Yeah.
this is not a small book. It's a 300-page book,
Yeah.
which signifies that so much has happened in your
So
life.
much has happened.
You have a chapter on Reborn too,
Yes.
which talks about multiple times you've been able to,
Reinvent. That's
reinvent the
why
wheel.
my children, my daughter has a tattoo of a phoenix bird.
Okay.
They always celebrate 3rd of June, the day I got
Right.
actually paralyzed. Operation गलत हुआ है, चलती भी गई थी, paralyzed हो गई. There's a lot of negativity which people try to put on that day. And I always throw a party, do a havan or do seva, go give out donations. I celebrate my 3rd of June because my daughters call it my phoenix birthday.
Yeah. Speaking of, I think we've got a couple of more questions. I mean, I've got a lot of questions. I just want to continue this, but just a few more before we
Yes.
hit the rapid fire. I would like to understand, you spoke about giving back to the society, doing some donations, you mentioned pujans, seva. You run a foundation,
Yes, wheeling happiness.
Wheeling Happiness, and it's very apt when you speak about
Yes.
wheeling, right? It's not just about the wheelchair, but the progress. Wheeling is
Absolutely.
the progress is what I understood from what you
Yes.
spoke of wheeling. Can you help us understand what does your foundation do, and how can others benefit through your foundation?
So, Wheeling Happiness was a brainchild of my daughter Devika,
Okay.
who has also overcome her journey of disability, and she has also gone on to be the gold medal winner in Khelo India Para Games and national championships. She has won international medals. She holds the record for 100 200 meters, the national record
Wow.
in her category of disability. She recently was at the Asian Para Games,
Okay.
and she's done psychology as a subject.
Okay.
She has won a lot of international awards as well because she works as a advisor in policy making at the Commonwealth Youth Council, representing the Commonwealth Youth Council at the United Nations.
Oh wow.
So Devika said that, Mom, there is something you must have done right. That you are a happy person despite your disability, and you made me a happy person despite my disability. It could have gone the other way, but you ensured. So, which means that you have identified the way to keep your soul happy. Because at the end of the day, every human being is the custodian of their soul. And why do we focus so much on the external bit? A bit of spirituality there. So, sitting on a wheelchair, automatic impression that a regular human person imbibes is that this person is a patient, this person is unhappy, this person is limited, this person is dependent, this person is bound. Whereas wheels to me are a sign of mobility, progress, movement. How can somebody be bound? So, and at the same time, she said, you had your sources of happiness in place. Something, when everything goes wrong, you identify something to make you smile. I cook, or
You're
I
also an entrepreneur in terms of running a restaurant.
So these were my passions. I had hobbies. So he says it's very important for us to teach persons with disabilities to have identified their sources of happiness.
Wow.
it could be anything. It could be education. Someone
So
just
the
wrote to
foundation
me.
is not just about sports.
No.
It's across domains.
It's across domains. So I had a girl calling me and saying, I want to drive like you.
Okay.
And we taught her driving. We got her license made. And she says, I'm empowered by 15 to 20,000 more today. I said, how? She says, because I can drive to workplace. I don't have to employ or be dependent on a driver. I save that much money. And I can really go out, have a holiday with that money. That was her happiness. A child said she wanted to educate herself. And she'd lost her father also. So to admit her, we had to admit her sister also. People were giving funds for Tanu to get educated, but nobody was giving fund for her elder sister who was going to be her caregiver because she was an able-bodied person. There was no policy under which she was being absorbed as a concessional student. So we raised funds for her to study.
Wow.
So that was her source of happiness. There was a tailor with arthritis and could not no longer, do stitching. He used to do stitching with his feet because his arms were affected. And continuously sitting and doing that, he was not able to earn, and he was the only person alive and had an old mother to take care of. He reached out to us कि अब मैं पैसे कैसे कमाऊं. We gave him an automatic machine where he didn't have to keep pushing the. So just a 2,000 worth of motor fitted into his machine made him and we made a table and a specific chair for him.
So I think with all that you have done, this is just the beginning of authorship, because it's not just about sports. I think you're living multiple lives in the life that you have got. I think a book about manifestation should come out through you. A book about your foundation should come, because that itself has so many stories within your foundation.
Manifestation was getting inspired by young Nadia Comaneci's medal in
which is mentioned,
1976.
The Perfect 10.
Perfect 10. To then going on to receive an award from Nadia Comaneci for winning a medal.
Right. Which is there also in the book. So, I mean, there's lots to talk, there's lots to learn, there's lots to get motivated
I hope
from.
people read this book, because when they look at it, they think it's just another sports story.
It's definitely
It's
not.
about parenting.
Right.
It's about women empowerment.
Right.
It's about mental well-being.
Right.
It's about accepting change, upskilling yourself, adaptability.
Right.
It's about a winner's mindset. It's about a mother-daughter relationship. It's about a husband-wife relationship.
Right.
It's about how teachers have to be with children. I think this book is not just about sports. People may reject it. Oh, I don't love sports. Let me not read it. I make an urge and appeal to people to at least read it once.
I'm sure this is going to be a book that will go a long way.
Thank you.
I'm saying this after reading the book.
Oh, thank you so much.
So this is out of personal experience, that to all our Sapna Rise readers, Bring It On is not just a book, as we had very well explained in terms of different role plays this book can offer. Bring It On is a book that we must read. It should be one of the top 10 books to read before you die, I would say.
Oh my God.
No, why I say
think
this
coming from a Limca record holder book seller who has the biggest book shop in India, I think this is one of the best compliments I have received.
And honestly, not because you're sitting in front of me, because this book, I don't look at it as a book which you have written. I look at it as a book that thousands of people will read because you have written to improve their life. And I think that itself is something which this book is going to do.
I'm humbled. I'm really humbled.
We are, in fact, because we have you today. So at Sapna Rise, we have Ms. Deepa Malik, who is a trailblazer. We have just heard the inspiring story through her book, Bring It On, which we all would recommend each one of us watching, reading, seeing this podcast. Would love you all to take up this book and read. Before we get to the end of it, we have something called as the rapid fire questions. We want you to answer in short,
Okay.
1 or 2 words, probably a line, which is okay. but we want to understand a different side of you.
Okay.
Something more creative, fun, spirited.
Bring it on.
Exactly. Let's bring it on. Okay. To start off in 3, 2, 1. Your favorite cheat meal.
Chaat.
Wonderful. A place you still want to travel to. And you travel the world, but still want to travel.
I want to see the temples in the south.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
India.
South India. Yeah. Nice. If
I
you
want
had
to see the architecture. There's so many stories, the history, the past, the art, the sculptures.
You have a friend who can take you
Yes.
the next time you're here. If you had a superpower for a day, what would that be?
I should be a construction woman so that I can construct ramps
Okay.
at every place and make the whole infrastructure accessible.
Wow. Very interesting. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Pray to the God, the sun god,
Okay.
and thank him for showing me another light of the day.
Wow. Very nice. A song that instantly lifts your mood.
मुझको भी तो लिफ्ट करा दे.
I mean, on a serious note?
No, I think to me, I read Hanuman Chalisa. That gives me a lot of strength.
Fantastic. Okay. If Bring It On was a film, who would you play it with? Would you want yourself to be part of it, or you would say, okay, I'm better directing it and someone else playing it?
So there is a production house still looking for a heroine to play.
Oh wow, okay. We have some new insights. We have the movie
Yeah,
coming
but
out.
it is just कहते हैं ना ठंडा बस्ता.
Achha.
I don't know. I probably say bring it on
Huh?
to some actress and some producer and some director that here is a book, my life story. Turn it into a
I
book,
think it's
into a
it's going to
biopic.
be a super hit. It's going to be a super hit.
Someone has to make it.
Okay. The best compliment you've ever received so far?
Yeah. When we meet you, we don't see your chair. So that means I have been able to erase the wheelchair. Though I love it, it's my wheelchair.
Oh, so nice. It's a wheelchair. I didn't think about it this way.
Yeah, it's my
Nice.
wheelchair.
Wow.
I love it. It's almost my body part, extension of my body.
So,
But when somebody says that when we come to see you, meet you, we see you, we don't see the chair, which means I have been able to create the right impressions around the use of wheelchair, that it is not a taboo anymore.
wow. One athlete you admire deeply.
Nadia Comaneci was my first love to sports. But when I joined, I was very inspired by Mary Kom because she was a mother
Right.
and she was playing.
Right. Interesting.
So she gave me a lot of, okay, mothers can play.
Others can do
Yeah.
this. If your daughters were to describe you in one word, what would it be? Your daughters.
My daughter, I don't know if I can say that, but they always call me, Mom, you're hot.
Oh, you're pretty at 55. One Indian woman, specifically Indian woman, past or present, you'd love to have coffee with.
Okay. Jhansi ki Rani.
Jhansi Ki Rani. Okay. So, similar mindset, I would say.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Khardungla, if that's the way I can pronounce
Yes,
it. That's right.
Khardungla.
Khardungla on a bike or Rio on the podium. What gave you the bigger adrenaline rush?
Definitely Rio at the podium
Okay.
because that medal belonged to 140 crore Indians.
Wow. Right.
Khardungla was just me.
Wow. Very well said. The most difficult chapter to write in your book, Bring It On.
Childhood
Child.
stories with my
Emotional.
father.
Right. Interesting.
I miss him.
I'm sure.
God bless him. Yeah.
He's the one who introduced you to so many stories.
Yes.
Right. What do people misunderstand about being disabled?
They only see the disabilities. They forget to look at the abilities beyond disabilities.
Wow. What does freedom mean to you today?
To be able to exercise my choices and have value addition goals which give me the empowerment to give back.
I think every sentence that you speak is something that can be penned down, honestly.
Oh my God.
If not an athlete, what would have you been?
I was always the biker babe.
Like a babe. Okay. Last two questions. One habit or ritual you can't live without.
Lighting a lamp before I leave the house.
Okay, that's nice. So you light a lamp in the prayer room.
Yes.
Wow.
Every day, every time I leave the home.
Wow.
My name is Deepa,
Absolutely.
and my father always said it is always better to light a lamp than to curse the dark.
So well said. The last question. Deepa Malik in 3 words.
Okay. Happy.
Okay.
But this is difficult. 3 words. Happy, definitely. Good mother.
Okay.
Good citizen of the country.
Wow. Very well said. Very well said. I think the last bit comprises everything. Your achievements, your accolades, your recognition, what you want to do, what you want to impart, your
I
foundation.
think it is a responsibility of every citizen to give back to their country in whatever little way.
Where they can.
I am doing my bit. Beyond me.
You definitely are.
Beyond me.
Right.
You are a citizen when it is beyond you.
Right.
For the country, for the land, for the state. It can be as simple as waste segregation, planting a tree.
Right.
You really don't have to win Olympic medals
Right.
to be the good citizen, or just obeying the traffic rules.
Well, that's a wrap. We had a very short and very inspiring session.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to open your heart out. I think the last bit of it, the rapid fire, did definitely get us a bit more insight about the more fun side, the more creative side, the loving side of Mrs. Deepa Malik. She's been an absolute hero in India as well as in the world today. And Bring It On is a book that each one of us must take it, not just to know the story of Deepa Malik, but it's something that we all can learn and create a story for ourselves, for the world outside. So bring it on, take your copy, and trust me, you won't be disappointed. It's a brilliant, brilliant read. With that, thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
For
you.
being part of Sapna Rise podcast.
Thank you.
It's an absolute honor, and I say this with all my heart.
Thank you. Gratitude.
Thank
God
you so
bless you.
much.
Thank you.